2 weeks from now, the guy who wanted boundaries between us would be holding onto my sleeve like letting go was the one thing he could not handle. I did not know that on move-in day. All I knew was that my new roommate looked like someone a university athletics department would put on a billboard. Logan Hayes was 6 feet 2 inches tall, broad-shouldered, permanently dressed like practice might begin at any moment, and apparently capable of carrying 2 moving boxes at once without admitting he was helping me. "That one goes in my room," I said. "I figured. Then why are you carrying it toward the kitchen?" Logan stopped, looked at the label, and turned around without answering. I smiled. "Strong start. You talk a lot." "You noticed. I was 22, finishing my senior year in visual communication, and desperately needed affordable housing within walking distance of campus. Logan was 23, a starting linebacker, and needed someone to cover half the rent after his previous roommate transferred. On paper, we were a practical solution to each other's problems. In person, we were clearly going to require instructions. Things were almost normal until I placed a framed photograph on my desk. It showed me with my ex-boyfriend at a summer art festival, nothing dramatic, just 2 smiling college guys standing beneath a ridiculous inflatable rainbow. Logan noticed it while carrying in another box. "That your brother?" he asked. "No, my ex." He stopped. "Your ex?" "Yeah." The silence lasted just long enough to become uncomfortable. "You are gay. That is usually what dating another guy suggests." Logan set the box down carefully. Okay. Yeah, I just think we should establish some boundaries." I stared at him. "We have known each other for 19 minutes. I am serious." "So am I. What boundaries?" Logan crossed his arms. "Just do not make things weird." I almost laughed, but his expression told me he genuinely believed he was being reasonable. "Logan, you are my roommate, not my type." His eyebrows lifted. "You do not know anything about me. I know you alphabetized the protein powder in the kitchen cabinet. That is organization. That is evidence." He fought a smile and lost for half a second. Then the guarded expression returned. "I am just saying I am straight." "Congratulations, Evan." "Logan." We stared at each other until I finally shook my head and returned to unpacking. I told myself it did not matter. We could split rent, share a refrigerator, exchange polite greetings, and otherwise live separate lives. That was the plan. Except Logan immediately became terrible at following his own rules. That evening, I came out of my room and found him tightening a loose screw on my desk chair. "What are you doing?" This thing was wobbling. "You went into my room?" The door was open. He stood quickly and handed me the screwdriver as though it might prove his innocence. "I did not want you falling backward." That sounds dangerously close to caring. It sounds dangerously close to avoiding a damaged security deposit. Later, after midnight, I walked into the living room for water and found Logan lying awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling. "Could not sleep?" I asked. "Something like that." I nodded and headed back toward my room. Just before I closed the door, I glanced over my shoulder. Logan was no longer staring at the ceiling. He was looking directly at me, and the second our eyes met, he looked away. That should have meant nothing. At the time, I convinced myself it did. By the 4th morning, I realized Logan had developed a strange habit of doing thoughtful things and immediately inventing reasons why they did not count. I walked into the kitchen before my 8 o'clock class and found a travel mug beside my backpack. "Is this yours?" I asked. Logan stood at the counter in gray athletic pants and a university sweatshirt. Eating scrambled eggs like breakfast had personally challenged him. "No." I opened the mug. "Coffee, 1 cream, 1 sugar." Exactly how I drank it. "Then whose is it?" "I made too much." "You accidentally made too much coffee directly into my travel mug?" Logan looked at me with impressive seriousness. "Efficiency. Right." I took the mug. "Thank you for your completely impersonal efficiency." "You are welcome." 2 days later, I came home after spending nearly 6 hours in the design studio and noticed the porch light glowing above our apartment door. Logan was watching a football game when I stepped inside. "You left the light on." "It gets dark." "That tends to happen every night." "Then the light seems useful." I stared at him. He kept his eyes fixed on the television, but the corner of his mouth moved. The pattern continued. When the wheel on my desk chair started sticking, Logan fixed it while I was in class. When I complained that somebody kept finishing the blueberry yogurt, 6 more containers appeared in the refrigerator the next morning. "Did you buy these?" I asked. "They were on sale." You do not eat blueberry yogurt. Maybe I was planning to start. Are you? Logan opened the refrigerator, studied the yogurt as if reconsidering his entire nutritional philosophy, and took an orange instead. Not today. I laughed all the way back to my room. The strangest part was that Logan still maintained distance whenever anyone else was around. If one of his teammates stopped by, Logan became noticeably formal. I was suddenly my roommate, instead of Evan, and every conversation between us became shorter. He never said anything openly cruel, but the contrast was impossible to miss. Alone, he remembered what time my classes ended. Around other people, he acted like remembering my last name would require effort. I told myself not to care. Logan's contradictions belonged to Logan. Then Wednesday morning arrived with dark clouds covering the sky. I was halfway through tying my shoes when I noticed a black umbrella leaning against my backpack. Logan. He appeared from the kitchen holding a protein shake. What? I pointed. Did this reproduce overnight? Weather report says rain. I own a jacket. That jacket is basically decorative. It has a hood. A hood is not an umbrella. I picked it up. You bought this? No. Where did it come from? Logan hesitated. I had an extra. You have one umbrella. I had two. Yesterday you had one. His expression tightened. Why are you keeping inventory of my umbrellas? Because your lies are becoming adorable. Logan nearly dropped his protein shake. They are not. Lies. So you are admitting they are adorable? Go to class, Evan. I smiled and headed for the door. Outside, rain had already started tapping against the sidewalk. I opened the umbrella and glanced back through the apartment window. Logan was standing behind the glass watching me leave. That evening, when I returned, the porch light was already on. I set the umbrella beside his shoes and noticed something that made me stop smiling. One pair of unfamiliar football cleats sat near the door. A teammate was visiting. I stepped inside, and Logan looked straight at me before quickly looking away. Hey, roommate, he said. Not Evan. Roommate. Somehow, after the coffee, the repaired chair, the yogurt, the porch light, and the umbrella, that single word bothered me more than it should have. The next morning, Logan acted as if calling me roommate instead of Evan had meant nothing, which probably would have worked if he had not already spent 2 weeks proving that small things meant everything with him. I did not mention it. I took my coffee to campus and buried myself in a visual communication project until Thursday afternoon, when Professor Keller paired me with Noah Bennett from the photography program for a student campaign. Noah was easy to talk to, the kind of person who could turn a discussion about lighting into a 10-minute argument about whether campus coffee qualified as coffee. By the time we finished planning our first shoot, I had laughed more than I had all week. You heading toward the student center? Noah asked. Yeah. I will walk with you. We crossed the main quad together, still debating coffee, when I noticed Logan leaving the athletic center about 40 feet ahead. He wore gray athletic pants and a university sweatshirt, his gym bag hanging from one shoulder. His eyes found me immediately. Then they moved to Noah. Logan slowed. Hey, I said when we reached him. Hey. His attention shifted back to Noah. I waited a second before realizing Logan expected an introduction. Logan, this is Noah. We are working on a campaign together. Noah, this is my roommate. I used the word deliberately. Logan noticed. Nice to meet you, Noah said. You, too. Logan's answer was polite, but something in his expression had tightened. Noah turned to me. I will text you those location ideas tonight. Sounds good. And think about Saturday. That gallery opening might actually save our project. I will. Noah waved and continued toward the student center. I watched him go before looking back at Logan. What? I asked. Nothing. You have a very expressive version of nothing. Logan adjusted his gym bag. Is he always like that? Like what? Friendly. I stared at him. Are you suspicious of friendliness now? I was asking. Yes, Noah is friendly. Logan nodded once. Okay. We started walking toward our apartment. He was unusually quiet for almost a block. Saturday, he finally asked. Gallery opening. For class. Mostly. I looked sideways at him. Why do you care? I do not. His answer came so quickly that I laughed. That sounded convincing. Evan. Logan. He sighed. Forget it. I did, or at least I tried to. Friday evening, Noah texted while Logan and I were eating dinner. I smiled at something Noah sent about our professor's impossible deadline. Logan noticed. Noah, he asked. I lowered my phone. How did you know? You have been talking about the project. I mentioned him once. Logan focused very seriously on his dinner. Whatever. There it was again, that strange tension he refused to name. Are you jealous? I asked, mostly because I expected him to laugh. Instead, his fork stopped halfway to his plate. Why would I be jealous? That was not a no. I am not jealous. Good. Because that would make your boundary speech incredibly confusing. Logan pushed his chair back. I have an early practice. It was barely 7:30. Of course you do. He carried his plate to the sink and disappeared into his room. Saturday afternoon, Noah and I met at the gallery. When I returned around 9, Logan was sitting on the couch with the television on but muted. How was your date? He asked. I stopped near the door. It was not a date. Something almost like relief crossed his face before he could hide it. I did not say I cared. You asked. Logan looked back at the television. Just making conversation. I headed toward my room, then glanced back. He was watching me instead of the screen again. For the first time, I stopped pretending I did not understand what I was seeing. Sunday should have reset everything, but Logan spent most of the day behaving like a man who had accidentally revealed too much and wanted to put every wall back exactly where it had been. He left early for the athletic center, returned after lunch, and barely spoke while I worked on my campaign project at the kitchen table. By evening, one of his teammates had invited us to a small gathering at an apartment 3 blocks from campus. I almost declined, but Noah had already mentioned he might stop by, and I needed photographs of the neighborhood for our project anyway. Logan heard me say Noah's name while I was checking my camera bag. He is going? Apparently. Logan nodded as though that information meant nothing. Fine. You know, most people say have fun. Have fun. Very natural. The gathering was crowded enough to be noisy but small enough that everyone kept crossing paths. Logan immediately fell into the version of himself I had started recognizing around his teammates. His shoulders seemed straighter. His jokes came faster. He called me his roommate twice within 20 minutes, never Evan. I stayed near the kitchen and talked with Noah about our project until one of Logan's teammates, Tyler, glanced between us and smiled. Looks like your roommate found himself a date, Hayes. Noah looked uncomfortable. I opened my mouth to correct him, but Logan answered first. I do not care what he does. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Something about how quickly Logan said them made the room around me feel suddenly distant. Tyler shrugged and changed the subject. Logan finally looked at me. For half a second, regret crossed his face. I gave him no chance to explain. Noah, I am heading out. Noah frowned. You want company? I am good. I only live a few blocks away. Logan stepped forward. Evan. At least he remembered my name now. Not here, I said quietly. I left before anger could make me say something I would regret. The walk home took less than 10 minutes, but it was long enough for me to understand why his words bothered me so much. Logan did not owe me attraction. He did not owe me jealousy, explanations, or anything romantic. But after weeks of coffee, porch lights, repaired furniture, umbrellas, and questions about Noah, he did owe me basic respect. I was tired of being treated like a person in private and a problem in public. Back at the apartment, I changed into sweatpants and tried working on my laptop. I made it through exactly 3 sentences before giving up. Nearly an hour later, the front door opened. Logan stepped inside alone. He looked toward my bedroom, then found me sitting at the kitchen table. Evan, about what I said. You made yourself clear. No, I did not. You said you do not care what I do. That is not what I meant. I closed my laptop. Then what did you mean? Logan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. That is what I thought. I panicked. Because Tyler thought Noah and I were dating? Logan looked away. It is complicated. No, you are making it complicated. I stood. You can be confused about yourself. You cannot use me as camouflage for that confusion. His face changed. I am not ashamed of you. Then stop acting like knowing me is something you need to explain away. I walked toward my room. Behind me, Logan said my name again, quieter this time. I stopped, but did not turn around. I need some space tonight, I said. He did not argue. Okay. That single answer surprised me enough that I glanced back. Logan was standing alone beside the kitchen table, his expression stripped of every confident defense he had worn at the gathering. For once, he did not look like the athlete everyone expected him to be. He looked like someone who had finally realized that the walls he built to protect himself could also make the person on the other side stop waiting. I stayed in my room for nearly 40 minutes. long enough for the apartment to become so quiet that I started wondering whether Logan had gone back out. I was not ready to continue our argument, but eventually I needed water. When I opened my door, the living room lights were off except for the lamp. Beside the couch, Logan was not there. I found him in the kitchen, sitting on the floor with his back against the lower cabinets and his knees drawn up slightly. His university sweatshirt was still on, but the confidence he usually carried with it was nowhere to be found. "Logan." He looked up. "Hey." His breathing was uneven, and his hands were clasped tightly together. I stayed near the doorway. "Are you okay?" "I do not know." That answer made me stop thinking about the argument for a moment. I filled a glass with water and placed it on the floor several feet from him. "There is water there if you want it." Logan nodded but did not reach for it. I sat against the opposite wall, leaving plenty of space between us. "Do you want me to get someone?" "No." "Do you want me to leave?" His eyes lifted immediately. "No." The answer came faster than anything he had said all evening. I rested my arms on my knees. "Okay." For a while, neither of us spoke. The refrigerator hummed behind him. A car passed outside. Somewhere upstairs, somebody dropped something heavy enough to make the ceiling creak. Logan finally closed his eyes. "Can you talk?" "About what?" "Anything. Something normal." I considered that. Professor Keller rejected 3 versions of my campaign layout because apparently my use of negative space was emotionally confusing. Logan opened his eyes. "How can empty space be emotionally confusing?" "That is exactly what I asked." "What did he say?" He stared at me for 5 seconds and said, "You will understand eventually." Logan gave a quiet laugh. "That sounds terrible." "It gets worse." Noah suggested adding a photograph of an empty bus stop, which somehow made Professor Keller happy. Logan's expression tightened briefly at Noah's name, but he did not interrupt. I continued talking about class, impossible deadlines, the campus printer that only jammed when somebody was already late, and the coffee machine in the design building that charged $3 for something resembling warm regret. Slowly, Logan's shoulders lowered. His breathing became steadier. After several minutes, he reached for the water. "Thanks," he said. "You do not have to thank me." "I think I do." I looked at him. "This does not erase what happened earlier." "I know." "Good." Logan stared into the glass. "I hated seeing you with Noah." There it was, dropped between us with none of his usual defenses. I did not answer immediately. "Why?" He shook his head. "I cannot explain it yet." "Then do not pretend you can." "I am trying not to." He took another drink. "Everything feels like it stopped making sense when you moved in." "That sounds inconvenient." A tired smile appeared. "You have no idea. I live with you." "I have some idea." This time his laugh sounded more like himself. I checked the clock above the stove. It was after midnight. "You seem calmer." "Yeah." I stood slowly. "Then I am going back to my room." Logan looked up at me, and for 1 second the fear returned to his face. He did not reach for me. He did not ask me to fix anything. He only said, "Evan." I waited. His fingers tightened around the water glass. "Could you stay for another minute?" I looked at the space between us, the same kind of space Logan had demanded when I first moved in. "1 minute," I said, sitting back down. Logan nodded, and for the first time, the distance between us did not feel like rejection. It felt like a boundary both of us had chosen to respect. 1 minute became 5, then 10, mostly because neither of us seemed willing to announce when the moment was officially over. Logan stayed on the kitchen floor with the water glass resting between his hands, while I sat against the opposite wall and talked about meaningless things until the tension finally left his shoulders. When the clock moved past 12:30, I pushed myself up. "I really am going to bed now." Logan nodded. "Okay." I took 2 steps toward the hallway. Behind me, I heard him stand. "Evan." I turned, expecting another question. Logan was closer now, but still several feet away. His expression looked uncertain in a way I had never seen before. "What?" "I know you said you needed space." "I did. And I know I do not get to change that just because I had a bad night." Something in his voice made me wait. "But," I asked. Logan looked down, then back at me. "Please do not leave." Yet, the words were almost exactly the ones I had imagined hearing 2 weeks earlier, except nothing about the reality felt satisfying. This was not a victory. Logan was struggling, and I was still hurt. I stepped toward the hallway again. His hand moved instinctively and caught the edge of my sweatshirt sleeve for barely a second. Logan immediately released it. "Sorry." I looked at my sleeve, then at him. You cannot do this. His face fell. I know. I should not have grabbed you. That is not what I mean. I kept my voice calm. You cannot make me feel unwanted in public and then need me in private. Logan went completely still. Evan, I do not think you are unwanted. Then your behavior has a strange way of communicating that. I panicked tonight. You keep saying that like panic changes what I heard. It does not. His answer surprised me. Logan took a step backward, deliberately restoring the distance between us. You are right. I folded my arms. About what? About me treating you differently around the team. About Noah. About all of it. He rubbed one hand across the back of his neck. I keep trying to control how everything looks because I do not understand what is actually happening. What is happening? Logan stared at the kitchen floor. I do not know how to say it without sounding ridiculous. Try. Several seconds passed. When Noah makes you laugh, I hate it. That sounds healthy. I know. Why do you hate it? Because I want to be the person making you laugh. The room became painfully quiet. Logan continued before I could respond. When you come home late, I listen for the door. When you skip breakfast, I notice. When you complained about that stupid umbrella, I spent the whole afternoon wondering whether you actually took it. You bought the umbrella. Logan sighed. Yes, Evan. I bought the umbrella. Despite everything, I almost smiled. I knew it. That is not the important part. It is slightly important. His mouth twitched, but the humor disappeared quickly. The important part is that none of this makes sense with the way I have always thought about myself. I studied him. So you decided the solution was making me feel like the problem. Logan looked ashamed. Yeah, that is not fair. No, and confusion does not excuse it. I know. He met my eyes again, and this time there was no defensive joke waiting behind them. I do not hate you, Evan. I think I have been trying so hard to prove that I could never want someone like you that I never stopped asking why I needed to prove it. My chest tightened, but I refused to give him an easy answer. Then maybe you need to start asking. Logan nodded slowly. I think I do. I turned toward my room again. This time he did not reach for me. Good night, Logan. Good night, Evan. I walked away knowing he had finally admitted the truth that mattered most, but admitting it was only the beginning. What Logan did next would tell me whether he wanted to understand himself, or whether he simply wanted me to make the uncertainty easier. The next morning, Logan did not leave coffee beside my backpack. Strangely, that was the first sign that he had actually listened to me. He was already dressed for practice when I entered the kitchen, and instead of guessing what I needed, he looked toward the coffee maker and asked, "Do you want some?" "Sure. 1 cream, 1 sugar." You know the answer. I am trying this new thing where I ask anyway. I leaned against the counter. Revolutionary. Logan smiled briefly, then handed me the mug. He did not mention the night before, and I appreciated that more than another apology delivered before 8 in the morning. Over the next 3 days, something subtle changed between us. Logan stopped performing kindness like it required an explanation. If he held the apartment door because I was behind him, he simply held it. If I came home while one of his teammates was visiting, he called me Evan instead of roommate. None of it was dramatic, but that was exactly why I noticed. On Tuesday evening, we ate dinner at the kitchen table when Logan finally said, "My dad called today." I looked up. "Everything okay?" "Yeah." He wanted to talk about football, internships, whether I am dating anyone. The usual interrogation. Sounds relaxing. Logan gave a quiet laugh. Growing up, everything had a correct answer with him. Football was the correct sport. Being tough was the correct personality. Dating girls was obviously the correct future. He turned his fork between his fingers. Nobody ever sat me down and told me to hate anyone. It was more like 1,000 little comments telling me which kind of person deserved respect. I stayed quiet. Logan continued. Locker room jokes. Family jokes. Guys at school using gay like it meant weak. I laughed because everybody laughed. And because not laughing might have made them look at you differently. His eyes met mine. Yeah, that explains where some of it came from. But it does not excuse what I did. I studied him. No, it does not. Logan nodded. He was not arguing. And more importantly, he was not asking me to reassure him. I keep thinking about what you said, he continued. About me making you the problem because I did not understand myself. And you were right. I am going to record that. Please do not. I smiled, but Logan remained serious. I do not know what label fits me, Evan. Maybe I will eventually. Maybe it takes time. But I know I was jealous of Noah. That part seemed fairly obvious. Painfully obvious, apparently. You asked whether our gallery trip was a date while pretending you did not care. Logan covered his face for a second. I would like to erase that conversation. Denied. He laughed, then lowered his hands. The jealousy was not your responsibility either. I acted like you had done something wrong just because somebody else made you happy. That surprised me. You have been thinking about this. A lot. What happens if I keep seeing Noah? Logan hesitated. I could see the answer he wanted to give fighting with the answer he knew was fair. Finally, he said, then I deal with my feelings without making them your problem. That mattered more than any confession could have. I leaned back in my chair. Good answer. I am learning. Later that night, I was heading toward my room when Logan called my name from the couch. I turned. What? He looked almost embarrassed. For what it is worth, I am sorry I made you feel like knowing you was something I needed to hide. I waited, expecting an explanation. None came. Thank you, I said. Logan nodded and looked back at the television. I went to my room realizing that the biggest change was not that Logan had finally admitted he cared about me. It was that, for the first time, he seemed determined to become better even if caring about me never earned him anything in return. Thursday afternoon gave me the first proof that Logan was changing for reasons that had nothing to do with winning me over. I had finished class early and was crossing campus toward the student center when I heard familiar voices near the athletic building. Logan stood with Tyler and 3 other teammates outside the entrance, all of them still dressed in practice clothes. I was far enough away that Logan had no reason to notice me, so I kept walking until Tyler mentioned a student from another team who had recently come out as gay. One of the guys made a cheap joke. A few people laughed. Logan did not. Come on, Hayes, Tyler said. You cannot tell me that was not funny. Logan adjusted the strap of his gym bag. It was not funny. Tyler stared at him. Since when? For a second, I saw the hesitation in Logan's face. It was the same hesitation I had seen whenever his teammates were around, the moment when he seemed to calculate which version of himself would be safest. Then his shoulders relaxed. Since I stopped pretending disrespect becomes funny just because everybody expects me to laugh. Nobody said anything for a moment. Tyler looked confused rather than angry. Another teammate shrugged and changed the subject to Saturday's game. That was it. No dramatic confrontation. No applause. Campus life simply continued around them. Somehow, that made the moment more important. Logan had not known I was there. He had nothing to gain from saying it. I continued toward the student center before he could see me. Later that evening, I was working at the kitchen table when the apartment door opened. Logan came inside, dropped his gym bag beside the couch, and headed toward the refrigerator. Hey, Evan. Hey. He pulled out a bottle of water, then stood there for several seconds. Something happened after practice. I closed my laptop. No. Logan turned. You know? I walked past the athletic center. His expression changed immediately. You heard that. Most of it. He looked almost disappointed. What? I asked. Nothing. I was going to tell you, but now it sounds like I wanted credit. Did you know I was there when you said it? No. Then you already have your answer. Logan sat across from me. It was weird. What was? Realizing how easy it was. He looked down at the water bottle. I spent years laughing at things because I thought not laughing would make people question me. Today Tyler questioned me anyway, and nothing happened. The Earth remained in orbit. Apparently. I smiled. Careful. You are developing perspective. Logan laughed quietly, then became serious. I still have a lot to figure out. I know. And I am not saying one decent moment fixes everything. Good, because it does not. I know that too. His eyes met mine. But I meant what I said Tuesday. I do not want to keep being someone who needs other people to feel smaller, so I can feel safer. That sentence stayed with me. Not because it erased anything, but because Logan finally seemed to understand what had actually been wrong. He was not trying to become better because he wanted a particular answer from me. He was trying because he had begun disliking the person fear had taught him to perform. After a quiet moment, Logan asked, Can I ask you something? Sure. Would you be willing to talk about us sometime? My chest tightened slightly. Us. Whatever this is. Or whatever it is not. He kept his hands on his side of the table. You do not have to answer tonight. I watched him carefully. A few weeks earlier, Logan would have pushed for reassurance because uncertainty frightened him. Now he was leaving the choice with me. Tomorrow night, I said. Relief crossed his face, but he only nodded. Tomorrow night. For once, Logan did not reach for me when he was uncertain. He simply trusted me enough to wait. Friday evening arrived with none of the dramatic tension I had expected. Logan was sitting on the couch when I came home, wearing gray sweatpants and an old university sweatshirt, with 2 mugs of coffee on the table. He glanced at mine. Before you accuse me of anything, I remembered 1 cream and 1 sugar, but I also considered asking first. Consideration is progress. I am learning. I sat in the chair across from him. Logan noticed the distance, but did not react. You wanted to talk? Yeah. He leaned forward, hands loosely clasped. I want to start with an apology, and I do not want to attach an excuse to it. I waited. I am sorry for how I treated you when you moved in. I made assumptions about you because you are gay, and I acted like you were responsible for making me comfortable. You were not. I am sorry I treated you differently around my teammates. I am sorry I made Noah seem like a problem when the problem was my jealousy. And I am sorry I reached for you that night when you had already asked for space. The apology was specific. More importantly, it ended there. No family history. No football culture. No confusion offered as a reason I should forgive him. Thank you, I said. Logan nodded. I still do not know exactly how to describe myself. You do not have to figure that out for me. I know. That is something else I finally understand. He looked directly at me. Whatever label I eventually use, I know I like you, Evan. I think I have for a while. I picked up my coffee. Since the umbrella? Before the umbrella. The chair? Logan smiled. Possibly the chair. That was fast. You were very annoying very quickly. Romantic. His laugh softened the room, but his expression became serious again. I am not asking you to date me because I changed 1 behavior or said 1 decent thing outside the athletic center. I know trust does not work like that. I studied him. What are you asking? Logan looked toward the empty cushion beside him, then back at me. Can I stay here with you for a while? The wording caught me. Weeks earlier, he had reached for my sleeve because being alone with his uncertainty frightened him. Now his hands remained clasped together, leaving the decision entirely with me. Why? I asked. Logan thought before answering. Because I want your company. Not because I need you to tell me who I am. Not because I am afraid you will leave if I let you walk away. I just want to be around you. I stood. Logan's eyes followed me as I crossed the living room. Move over. His eyebrows rose. Seriously? You are 6 feet 2 inches tall and somehow taking up 3 seats. He shifted immediately. I sat beside him, leaving several inches between us. Logan smiled, but made no attempt to close the distance. For a moment, we simply listened to the quiet apartment around us. Evan. Yeah. Can I ask one more thing? Depends. Are we okay? I considered the question. We are getting there. He nodded. I can live with that. I looked at the space between our shoulders, then moved slightly closer until they touched. Logan went still for half a second before relaxing. He did not grab my hand. He did not lean against me or turn the moment into something larger than it was. He simply stayed where I had invited him to stay. When I first moved in, Logan had believed boundaries existed to keep people away. Now he understood that respecting them was sometimes the very thing that made someone choose to come closer. And sitting there beside him, I realized the difference between being needed and being chosen had never felt clearer.